what I want is like actually all great things. I'm a good person and I want good things and they're wonderful and I should feel no shame in pursuing what I want. And subsequently, when you pursue what you want, there's this energistic building of passion and interest and motivation. And you don't get stuck in a soulless job doing things that you are really bored or uninterested in. You'll follow these really beautiful, magical careers of just like mutual co-creation with people. And yeah, if you follow what you want to do, it energizes you in a much more powerful way. And odds are good that the things you want are also good for the world and good for society.
Hello, everyone. This is How Did You Get In, a conversational podcast with people who got into the world's top business schools. We'll be talking with these applicants, hearing about their tips, tricks, and secrets to success. We welcome you to the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to How Did You Get In, a podcast focused on the real life experiences and applications of people who got into top business schools. Today, we have a very special guest, one of my near and dear friends who I've known for 10 plus years, Jeff Simnick. Jeff and I met at UChicago as lonely, sad, nerdy freshmen. Sorry, Jeff. And we had a series of adventures in college and so much fun, and ended up actually living together after college in California before Jeff went off to the University of California, Berkeley Haas School of Business. So with that, Jeff, welcome to the pod.
Yeah. Hi, Jules. Great to chat with you and Alex. But yeah, excited to see what this is all about.
Yeah, no. And I feel like I wanted to talk to you because I was living with you when you were applying to business school and you applied the year before me. So I feel like I learned a ton from your application process. But before we get into the business school phase of life, like give us a little bit of your background. Where are you from? Where do you live now? What do you do now?
Yeah, that's right. I think I was also living with you while you applied. But life story is that I grew up in the northwest suburbs of Chicago in a classic suburbia town called Lake Zurich. And to your point, was nerdy, sad, and lonely most of
Now you're
childhood
not. Now you're
until
not.
college. Until you saved me in college. No, I mean, had a normalish childhood and was always super academically driven. Um, and yeah, just worked hard in school and was always also drawn to economics and business and the financial world, which is ultimately why I decided to go to the University of Chicago in undergrad instead of Northwestern, which were my final two choices because the University of Chicago had such a stellar economics reputation. And I was pretty certain that that was what I wanted to do.
Nice.
So yeah,
Nice.
I left the suburbs and moved into the city, which is not very geographically far, but is quite culturally different, especially Chicago. And yeah, while there, I met lovely people like you, studied economics major, statistics minor, studied abroad in Vienna, lots of classic college shenanigans. And yeah, I think the biggest thing while there is that I discovered an interest in the healthcare industry, primarily through the club's like undergraduate investment banking group, the Blue Chips, if you remember that organization. And
Yes, they rejected me. Yep.
well, you got into the better one. You got into Eckert Consulting, so that's
Different.
great. And then between that and then also I guess community oriented volunteer mission driven student group that I was also involved with called the Community Service Leadership Training Corps that spent a quarter studying healthcare systems locally, nationally, and globally. Just got a lot of exposure and got interested in it, which brought me to a career in healthcare investment banking afterwards at a boutique called Juniper Advisory. and they focused on hospital and health system mergers and acquisitions. So it was a really interesting role given how specialized the firm was, and they focused a lot on rural standalone hospitals across the country that can no longer stand alone. As you may know, rural hospitals are struggling in a big way and therefore need to consolidate. So yeah, lots of going to small towns in Wisconsin, Iowa, Kansas, and helping those hospitals find partners to stay alive, which also in those communities, the hospital is often the largest economic driving force. So super interesting work. Investment banking was not what I want to do forever. And then having spent 24-ish years at that point in and around Chicago, minus the study abroad, I wanted to move. And then, yeah, being a healthcare geek, had always heard about Kaiser Permanente out in primarily California, but also Georgia, the Mid-Atlantic states, Hawaii, and some other spots, because they are a super unique healthcare model that people don't really see in the United States very often, and also very successful at it, and receive lots of praise inside and outside the industry. So I was like, I want to go work for them. Left the iBanking job, left Chicago, moved to Oakland, California, to join their corporate development and strategy team, where their headquarters are based out of. And yeah, did kind of similar in-house investment banking and consulting stuff for another 2.5 years, and really enjoyed being at a mission-driven company. And Jules, yes, we worked there together.
Jeff got me my job there. Let's not skate over that. Jeff saved me in Chicago. We would go run together, and I was telling him about how I was miserable on a tobacco project, and he saved me. So I owe Jeff my firstborn child.
I don't think I want your firstborn child, but I will think of something else to take.
You can like give it its middle name or something.
Okay.
About her first $1 million that she earns.
Yeah. Great, Alex. I'm glad you're on the call.
Jesus, yeah, wow, negotiating away.
There were a few years there where you were riding my coattails between that and business school. Yep. And then at that point was going to go to business school. So I don't know if you want me to pause.
No, yeah, I was just curious, like, was business school always in the cards for you, or was it because you're ready for a career pivot? Basically, like, yeah, had you always been thinking of it throughout your undergrad, or was it as time went on?
For some reason, just always felt inevitable. I think kind of, Jules, to your point about, as somebody who had less guiding resources in the business world, like didn't have family or very many friends that had gone through to business school, it always to me seemed like the way to get the business stamp of approval. And then, yeah, especially in those early years after undergrad, I wasn't feeling incredibly confident in my skills, career, ability to succeed in a corporate environment. And yeah, Jules, you remember many long conversations about just workplace, early career anxiety. And so all that led me to like picture business school as this way to get all of the confidence and skills and knowledge to succeed. So there were those components. And then I would also combine it with, I did want to move away from like quote unquote traditional healthcare into health tech and digital health. So I want to make that transition. And I mean, likewise, and even more so than not having great guideposts for business, I had even fewer guideposts for tech and like what that looks like. So knew I would need some help doing that. So a combination of those, and then, yeah, I mean, I just would always hear great things. I mean, the business school sales pitch is pretty strong, and so enjoyed it. Yeah, as a side note, I don't know if you'll want to include this, but I forget if I texted you, Jules, but on Friday, I went to this Y Combinator. They had their first health, tech, and bio summit. And then like halfway through, I just went because I was interested in the topic, obviously, and wanted to like stay fresh on everything and meet some interesting people. But like halfway through, I'm like, this is like a business school recruiting event. It's like they meet, you're surrounded by like young people, like full of big ideas and energy, and they're all like selling how great the program is and the resources they have. And it just like was kind of uncanny valley and how it was shared a lot of like underlying aspects of business school, but also was like a different take on it. Yeah, it was wild.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? Because like it's
Mhm.
I wonder if you've seen Jeff, you've been in the Bay Area now for 5+ years, maybe. I think that's about right.
Like 6.5
6-ish.
but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember when we were applying to school, we had a lot of friends who were in tech who I think were very skeptical about the value of an MBA. I guess two-part question. One is like, you know, how did you overcome that? Or did you have doubts because you saw sort of tech friends and people sort of who went without the MBA route? Did that make you ever question your decision? And based on what you just shared about at Y Combinator, it feeling like an MBA pitch, do you feel like that sentiment is changing and the receptivity to MBAs is changing?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, there definitely is the group of people who found success in tech right out of undergrad and therefore questioned the value of business schools. I never felt doubt about its value. I saw their point. Like, it's not a must have, it's nice to have. And I do think that's true. Like, you can still succeed without it. But I think also to my earlier point of just like having fewer guideposts or knowledge, like I needed to get some skills, and I know my confidence is sourced from my education and my knowledge base. Yeah, I mean, I saw what they said, and you can succeed without business school, but at the same time, like it's hard to deny the stats and the facts when you look at where business school populations go and how successful they are. And so, like, I knew like even if I was average, then I'm gonna be fine.
And
And
you're well above average, but yes.
yeah, sure. So I just like I guess I had a ton of faith in the system, and in talking to Berkeley and all the interesting people, like I knew like I was getting access to something amazing. In terms of the receptivity in the market and if that's changing today, I mean, I guess I can only speak from like my perspective and vantage point, but like I still think MBAs are extremely highly valued, and I know there's an emphasis on them in recruitment drives I've been a part of, and they always bring a superior interview performance, and I think within the workplace are more effective and viewed a bit more highly. So yeah, I don't know about the wider market, but I definitely think MBAs have a advantage against other people in the job hunt for sure. But again, I do think it's like it's not like there's a filtering criteria
Right.
in tech where you need to have an MBA to be brought in, but it is a help. It's like a power
It's a leg up.
It's a boost.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a boost for sure. Yeah. And then I think like a final thing I'll add on to that is one thing I realized in business school was I think it's partially true with tech, but especially with healthcare. But so like the University of California, Berkeley Haas has a very close relationship with the University of California, San Francisco. And UCSF is one of the top medical programs in the country. And so, yeah, they train all these brilliant researchers and physicians developing really cutting edge medical technology. But I also realized one of the reasons they have such a close relationship is because they have these brilliant medical and health tech people launching crazy new breakthroughs, but they have no understanding and frankly no interest in the business side of things. And like they need Berkeley Haas as a pool of MBAs to come and like pair up with their brilliant scientists. And I think that dynamic is actually real. Like, because I guess there's a part of me like, you know, this so much better than I do. But at one point, I'm like, oh, you don't want to do this stuff, or you don't know how to do this stuff. Like, you just really know like deep chemistry. So there is like this codependency where like, and I bring that up because like I do think that's replicated to some extent within tech. And like if you have a technical founder, they don't know or don't want to do the business stuff. But yeah, there's a real need for even the most talented people or companies in the world need MBAs because to the point, it's like you can be a Nobel Prize winning scientist, but that doesn't mean you know how to run a company.
I want to, yeah, that's such a useful insight.
Yeah. You're selling me on business school and I already went. So, so you mentioned like, you didn't exactly have particular like resources or connections with people who had gone the business school track in the past. So in terms of approaching your application process, did you seek professional coaching or other professional resources? Did you do it on your own? Did you, what resources did you use when you started the process?
Trying to travel back. I mean, I didn't end up using professional application coach, but
sorry, you did or did not?
Did not. I did not use a professional education or professional application coach, which I do think I regret in retrospect and can dive into that. But for the most part, a lot of self-research and a lot of attending the informational sessions and just meeting with people and talking. I think that's another big component is just you have to put yourself into those rooms and you'll meet people and make connections, even if you're the worst social person in the world, that you learn by osmosis and monkey see, monkey do, and you just hear how everything works. So started going to those events and like I knew I wanted to do healthcare and health tech. So I filtered all the business schools against that spectrum and then focused on, I think, 5 or 6 that rose to the top. It was like Berkeley, Duke, Wharton, Stanford, and maybe NYU or Cornell that had the most interesting healthcare programs in my mind. And yeah, just focused on going to their info sessions. I got Manhattan Prep books, I think. And
you did. I borrowed them after you were done with them.
Yes. Yes. And yeah, just all self-study, self-networking, didn't use a coach. Again, kind of regret it. I had friends and previous managers review essays and yeah, got letters of rec from previous managers. So that was really it. Took the GMAT 3 times.
You're in the, we're all in the 3 times club.
Okay, cool.
What was I think Jeff did the best of all of us, if I remember correctly.
My first one I think was like a 690, maybe a 680, and then a 720, and then a 730. At which point I stopped.
Oh, so you didn't think 720 was? I was grateful to get a 710 because I was like, okay, fine, finally over 700. So 720 in your mind wasn't high enough, or?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I just wanted to be as competitive as possible. And I think one of the things I heard is like MBA programs, one of their things they need a signal for is the average GMAT scores of their people. And so like, if you have a higher GMAT, it'll help them bring up their average GMAT. And that made a lot of sense to me. And like, I just didn't want to be excluded because I would be bringing down their GMAT. And also, maybe just a lack of confidence, but I just didn't think I had a very compelling career to that point. And I was pretty young, I guess. Like I was playing 4 years out of undergrad. Yeah, just really wanted to have the best score possible. And I felt more like when I got to 730, just it was like such a small increase, like 690 to 720 also. I was like, oh, that's, a pretty big jump. I wonder if I can do another big jump. And then when I did a smaller jump, I'm like, oh, this kind of looks like I'm topping out here. So not worth it to go through the pain of it once more time.
Yeah, no, I mean, and speaking from watching Jeff, like Jeff, that you are a perfectionist. Actually, you and Alex have something in common. You guys are both former valedictorians of your high schools. You guys both have the drive to sort of do the best you possibly can at everything. And so I can imagine, yeah, if you saw potential for further momentum and you got those 10 extra points, and that 720 to a 730 doesn't hurt anything.
Yeah, Yeah. And yeah, you're right. I'm just, I guess perfectionist is the way to put it, but want the best.
So tell us, let's double click a little bit into what you just shared about your process. So tell us about your essay writing process. What did you end up writing about, especially for Haas? Because I know you applied to a few schools, but for Haas, which is what you ultimately chose, what was the essay question or topic, and what did you choose to write about?
Yeah, Haas, I think, and I don't know if I've ever really talked about this with Jules, but one of the things that drew me to Haas was I got a similar, much more happy in California vibe, but a similar energy to the University of Chicago in terms of culture and
Mhm.
spirit and kind of unabashed dorkiness, or like you're proud of it, um, and a bit of like countercultural, I guess, where like UChicago is like not like the other top schools, and Haas is kind of like not the other business schools. I don't know how popular of a saying this is, but it did always stick with me. A professor once used Berkeley Haas is where Berkeley Haas is where the suits think you're hippies and the hippies think you're suits.
I love that.
Uh, And I bring that up because in the application process, Haas is known for heavily relying on their essays and their interviews more than scores, and having fun and wacky essay questions, which is also super true of the University of Chicago. They're
Mhm.
infamous for their weird essay questions. Berkeley Haas, at the time, I think they've changed it now, but it was tell us your 6 word story, an allusion to I think an apocryphal Ernest Hemingway story where it's like
Mhm.
baby shoes for sale, never worn.
Mhm.
But yeah, and the prompt was to lead with a 6 word story and then expand on it in 2 or 3 paragraphs after that. That was another big thing that caught me off guard, is how short business school essays are. You just have to get to the point. And then in terms of writing it, I don't know. I think I just jotted down ideas. I think the biggest thing for me in any writing process, and what's true of business school, was like doing the word vomit and getting it all out, and then refining it, maybe throwing up 1 or 2 more times different words. And it's just the editing is like what
Yeah.
matters, and you just have to get something on paper that you can then start playing with and moving words around and stuff. So I definitely did first drafts for all of my schools that were way too long. And I also noticed a thing too is my essay writing just got better the more I did throughout the process.
Mhm.
So like Harvard was my first essay, and it was so bad and such crap compared to my essays at the end. So I do think that's something to keep in mind is you will improve your application skills as you go through the process. And so like I think most people's applications and interviews are much stronger near the end than the beginning, I would imagine. So yeah, and did that. I think Joel probably read my essay
Mhm.
and refined it, sent it over. And then they had another essay that was just kind of like, why business school, or what are you looking to do? That one was more straightforward. And I think
Do
that
you
might
remember
have
your
been
6 word
it.
story, or what was it about? I remember.
Yes, I do. Yes, I definitely do. Yeah, and I think I like the 6 word story because I guess I just reflect on like who am I and what values do I want to convey to the school of like what they're getting. And I feel uh, like grit, perseverance, humor, uh, humility.
Checks
Um,
out, checks out.
yeah, yeah. And I was also just trying to think like what possible stories could I do that would be of interest. So my 6 word story was ran 22 miles and ate Vaseline.
Oh my God.
Um,
Yes, I remember this so well. Oh, so good.
mhm. Yeah, so I figured that was a pretty good hook because I also think like that's part of the prompts question is like, can you draw in people's attention? But no, I wrote about this terrible, hilarious experience I had running my first marathon that Jules got me into running. She is the one that convinced me to start doing marathons. And so my first marathon, the Chicago Marathon, yeah, I was on mile 22 and just red faced and disgusting and in pain and struggling for sure. And I saw people on the sidelines handing out goop. When goop is like this gel that's like a nutrient rich energy gel with electrolytes and sugar and all the things you need to stay alive. So it's like, oh, thank God, goop. So I like ran over and I took a big scoop of goop on my hands and put it in my mouth. And the person handing out the goop would just look like horrified and then started laughing hilariously. And, like as I took 2 steps, like my mouth just got like coated in like waxy Vaseline and I couldn't breathe and I was like choking on Vaseline and I had to stop and like spit it out and clot my mouth. And I looked back and like him and all his friends were laughing at me because like they were handing out Vaseline for people. But the reason I thought people were eating it because they were putting it on their lips. So I thought people were like taking it and eating it, but they were just taking the Vaseline and putting it on their lips. And so I'm like, oh, I thought it was food and it wasn't food. So that's a story I wrote about because I feel like it communicated those values. And I think like one of my final lines was like in this, like, this is what you're going to be getting. Like you're going to get somebody who runs marathons for fun, still fucks up, has a good laugh about it, and then just finishes the last 4 miles. And like that's who I'll be. Is I'll probably mess up at mile 22 and then finish the race at mile 26, and you know that you can count on me to do that.
I love that so much. I love it so much. And it's actually funny, Jeff, because on a prior interview, I gave advice that's counter to what I'm going to say now, which is like when I talked to my business school counselor, she was like, do not talk about your marathons. But I think you are the exception to this rule because your story is about, it's not about like, look at me, I can run so much. Like I'm so driven. It's about how you don't take yourself too seriously. And you get yourself into these scenarios and you still push through. So I feel like it is it's also talk about authentic as someone who knows you well. It's 100% true. I got a text when you were at mile 23 saying you had done it. And it's such a visually clear, everyone knows what the side of a race looks like with people handing that stuff out. It's so like visual and visceral, like, oh, such a memorable, solid essay choice.
Yeah. And it was short and concise. So, and I think it also speaks a bit to like, I don't know, like I didn't do anything crazy in my career at that point. Like, I guess investment banking at a boutique and then working at a major healthcare system, but I wasn't setting up solar power energy in the developing world or wasn't Forbes 30 under 30. And like, I think you can still craft a really compelling story with relatively mundane accomplishments. To your point, Jules, as long as it's like true to yourself and is a microcosm of your general approach to things.
Was that the first story that you thought of, like, to your point, the whole word vomit thing? Did you actually have like multiple 6-word stories, or you knew what the story was and had word vomit telling that specific story?
I do think I had a few other ideas for a 6-word story. I think I maybe wrote one of them. I'd have to look back into my drafts.
I think you did, if I remember from perusing. And no, I think I definitely wrote out a few stories. I think I did the initial getting thoughts down for a couple different stories and then realized that one was the best. And to what I was just talking about, I think some of the other ones talked about like more impressive things than running a marathon, at least in my mind, from a career perspective. But I did settle on that one because that one felt the most true and strong, even if it wasn't the biggest thing. And I also think there was an element of like all the other stories were bullet points on my resume, so it wasn't really adding anything new because I already put the coolest things I did on my resume. So I wanted to like round out those bullet points with character, and they didn't need to hear about XYZ merger that I helped with again. No, I would, if I was an admissions counselor and I'm reading 1,000 essays a day, I would so much rather read the 6-word story about you swallowing Vaseline than like another M&A story.
That reminds me to that point when so Haas, I don't know how their schools do it, but when Haas does it, they have students, like current students, call to tell you they got admitted, the ones that are helping out the admissions team. And they said, you got admitted, yada, yada. And they're like, we loved your essay. It was so funny. It made us all laugh. Like we were passing it around the office to like give everyone a laugh. And like, that's the kind of essay you want to write. Like the essay where people like want to pass it around and be like, oh my God, look at this.
Yep. That's such a good point. And I want to, before we move off of the essay, I just want to crystallize, because you made so many really insightful points. So one of them was your essays and your whole application process gets better as you go. And so whether that means you start with one of the ones that you that's lower on your priority list for an application, and then go towards the ones you want the most towards the end, or you make sure you go back to the original essays once you've gotten a few reps in with the schools and you feel like you're getting your flow. Remember, you get better as you go through the process. Your writing skills get sharper. I think the second thing is, Jeff talked about, like, think about from the admissions office perspective what's going to stand out to them, what they want to hear, and something like that just makes you stop what you're doing and want to share. And that tied in with your final point, Jeff, which is using the real estate of your application wisely. You were like, okay, I've already made these points in my resume. I've made these points elsewhere. This is my space to do this. And so you used all of your real estate really smart in a smart way.
Yeah, I guess so.
Isn't Julia really
humble.
good at pumping your tires?
Yeah.
Jeff just wants to crawl in a hole whenever I do it. He does not. He's those plants that open up in the sunshine. He sees me coming and is like, no.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
go ahead, Jeff.
All true. No, that's all correct.
You just provided a lot of great advice and a great example on the essay. What would you say is the best advice that you got throughout your application process?
I think it was something along the lines of don't present yourself necessarily, present yourself as you actually see yourself, and don't try to overinflate things, and to be authentic is the biggest thing. And by that, I mean, it's okay if you don't really know what you want to do. And a lot of it isn't about letting them know you're the best or you know exactly what you want to do, but it's that you understand how it works. And part of the application is you don't necessarily need to be the best, and you don't necessarily need to know exactly what you're doing or say you're going to become the next business tycoon. It's more about you have ideas, you're smart and driven, and you want to explore those ideas, and business school provides XYZ resources in terms of networks and educations and contacts and programs that you can take advantage of. It's how will you take your ideas and the resources the school has and spend your time wisely to refine whatever thesis and theories you have, and take 1, 2, 3 steps ahead in your career that you otherwise would not be able to. And it's really more about how you need or want business school as a series of stepping stones to get to where you want to go than it is trying to convince them that you are going to be the next biggest thing.
Yep.
Well, even though you are going to be the next biggest thing, you didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears a little bit and hear about what you got out of school. I got to see you in your element, and so I'm happy to chime in on just sort of the transformation I saw as a friend of you going to school. But tell us what you feel like you got out of the 2 years. What, did you think it was worth it, all the work that you put in?
Oh yeah, definitely think it was worth it. I don't think I could have moved from healthcare corp dev to digital health product management without it. There was so much I didn't know, and it's such a different skill set and world. So what I got out of it, so a few caveats. One, I was actually in this awesome program that Berkeley offers, which is a dual MBA Master's in Public Health, where you're embedded fully in the full-time MBA class, but stay an extra semester in order to get also a Master's in Public Health. And so that was really cool because basically we had a cohort of 25 people within the program who were also dualies, as we called ourselves. focused on the MBA, MPH, and it was like nice to have this built-in squad who are all focused in the same sphere as you and get along. And like caveat, Berkeley Haas sometimes I feel like is missed as like being really, really great for healthcare. This program is one of those reasons. It's extremely popular and extremely just turns out amazing opportunities for people. So there was that. And as part of that, I had 2.5 years, which meant a second summer internship, which was wonderful because to my earlier point about like trying different things and exploring your thesis, like very much helped me in internship hunting, focus on one thing one summer and a second thing a second summer to compare and contrast. And then continue along that line, I would say the biggest and most helpful thing for me was being exposed to and being able to learn from so many different experiences in such a short amount of time. Because I had the 2 summer internships, I did a fall school year internship, and then through coursework, I worked directly with 3 different companies on semester long live projects. And so within like 2.5 years, I was embedded within like 6 to 8 different organizations. And that ability to see like how product works across different organizations is amazing. And you just learn what's the same, what's different, what works, what doesn't work, how can you be effective. And you kind of start to realize like the underlying patterns across work and business styles when you run through all these different organizations. And I think a similar thing happens in just all other aspects of business school. Like, I don't know, I probably talked to 100 product managers over my time there and just smart, connected people who are successful, and was able to, again, like hear what they're saying, hear what their best practices are, compare, contrast, ingest it, and then formulate my own opinion on it. So that was just wonderful. And then I think the other component is just having people to process all this information with, and also to support you because it's scary. But when you're surrounded by a couple hundred people who all took this leap of faith with you, it's very reassuring, and you all help each other get through the uncertainty of it all, because it is kind of scary to give everything up and plunge into the unknown. But so you're surrounded by all these people who can help process it with you, both your classmates as well as professors at Haas. They have full-time career coaches who are there for you and are always there to talk about your career. And you actually get them forever after graduating, which is another great benefit. And one in particular, Natalie Brain, who I will always sing her praises, super helped me in moments of doubt. Because there were a few times where, like, in particular, like my first year internship, the first offer I got, I was applying to like healthcare M&A consulting and banking internships as like a safety in case I couldn't get a product role because I was like too scared. And the first offer I got was from Ernst & Young and their healthcare M&A team, basically doing exactly what I was doing before business school. And Natalie was there to just like push me to say no and to keep going and to get through to the end. And so just having those people to drag you and be confident on your behalf when you aren't confident and when you're feeling the tug towards safety again is huge. So yeah, I think it's mostly the vast amount of options that you have and a support team to help process it all. And yeah, all of that just really helped me get to where I am.
That's another like great insight, but I also feel like we've talked to a few people, Jeff, who talk about their big regrets at business school. And one of the big regrets is I didn't use all the resources that I had at that time. And hearing you talk about it reminds me, you are very good about using the resources, going, like meeting people, sort of taking advantage of everything that was put in front of you. And And it clearly, I mean, it worked, right? Because I remember you talking when you got that EY offer and saying, oh, maybe I should just take it. And I remember that career counselor who helped steer you clear. And we all face that temptation early on because banking and consulting recruiting is so early. And you're like, okay, oh, there's my life jacket. I'm going to grab it. That's going to be steady stream income. But I can imagine that you are much happier right now than you would have been had you not taken that leap.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I'm very happy that I moved into product and tech. And yeah, I do think that's it too, because showing up and doing things, even if you don't necessarily think they're worth it, like just going to cover letter writing workshops or tell me about yourself workshops or all of these things that don't, I don't know how to describe it, not like hokey, but like are, I feel like 101 or, like business for dummies, but it helps to practice. And I think some people think they don't need it, but you can always use more practice. And I think one of the things too is like people go and then don't give it a sincere effort. And like, that's kind of a waste of time. Like if you're not actually going to try your best and improve yourself, which is hard because you're in a room full of strangers and they're like, try and be smarter than you've ever been before. And when everyone else might not be on the same level as you, and then you feel weird. So showing up and just giving it a real effort is huge. And yeah, there were so many times I would like walk into a room or with the career coach for the first time and I'm like, I have no idea what to expect. Like, I don't know what the rules are for this environment that I'm entering, but just kept an open mind and figured I could figure it out. And yeah, I know it kind of becomes fun at some point.
Yeah. You swallowed the Vaseline and you kept running.
Exactly.
Amazing. Why don't we hop to rapid fire?
Yeah. So this is kind of like first thing that comes to mind. We'll see. It's not necessarily a one-word answer though. Some of them are, but some of them aren't. Okay. Was there an interview question that took you by surprise?
I don't think so. I can't really remember my interviews. I think I repressed them. Nothing comes to mind, so I doubt it.
No, you prepped pretty hard too. You already gave one, but what stereotype about your school, about Haas, do you think is true?
Yeah, it definitely where the line we said earlier, it's very queer. I think they have the highest percentage of queer students, which is awesome. And yeah, I think they are just a bit more laid back, California, relaxed, and definitely focus on, I would say, more social impact industries than others.
Anything you would do differently on your application if you had a do-over? And that could be to any school.
Right. I mean, I would get a coach. At the time, I thought application coach would put me into a clone of other people and also confuse my story or like take away from the authenticity of it. But yeah, actually, Jules, after seeing you go through the process, realized it's the opposite, and coaches do just help you tell your story better. And I think, well, if they're a good coach, of course, and they help you find your true self and the true story that you want to tell and tell it in the best way possible, not try to fit you into this mold of what an application should be. And I definitely see the value in that. In retrospect, that I could have used somebody to help tell my true story better rather than turn me into a cookie cutter.
What do you say your biggest weakness is when you're in an interview, and what is it actually?
Oh my God. Off the top of my head, and I don't know if this is cheating, but I do find it to be true. And I think so this might be more like what it actually is rather than what I say in interviews. working backwards. But again, some of the best advice I got in business school was that our strengths and weaknesses are usually the same thing. The weaknesses are just when you use your strengths too much or too little. And I find that to be very true for myself. Like take, for example, like I have like a casual, very co-creative, friendly approach to doing business and work. But if I do that too much, I think it comes across as, I don't know, whatever you call it, like uncaring or just too laid back. So like that's one thing I struggle with, or like not having executive presence is another thing where if I'm too approachable, it leads to my weaknesses. And similarly, like you mentioned, my perfectionism. If I'm too much of a perfectionist, it is crippling and analysis paralysis and isn't helpful. So I do find that to be kind of the truest take on weaknesses and strengths, is they're the same side of the coin, just using them inappropriately. So in terms of what I actually say in an interview,
do you say like, I just care about my work so much, I just work too hard?
Oh no, I definitely give a real one.
I believe it.
Yeah. I probably, here's one. It's one of the most, and I hate this advice, but one of the feedback I feel like I get, well, I got it at least like 2 or 3 times in my career. And so I'm like, all right, either this is a trend or people just don't know what they're talking about. Definitely early in my career too. Like managers would tell me like my work or analysis was missing the so what. And like,
I hate
so
that.
what of the analysis. And they'll just be like, oh yeah, this is a great deck, but it's missing the so what. And by that, I think they mean like, you know, the pithy takeaway, or they like the impactful like insight or whatever. So I would say like, I'm really great at like breaking down problems, telling you what's going on and laying out reality for you. But it seems like I will often miss like that innovative original thought, which part of me wonders if it's just like BS thing people tell other people when they themselves don't know what's going on.
Yes.
But I do bring it up because people say it and I'm like, okay, sure. And so I do contribute that. And I think that's one I've used before.
Nice. Alex, maybe last one on the rapid fire. You want to fire off the last one?
If you had to pick a new mascot for your school, what would it be? To fully represent Berkeley Haas.
Yeah, and I will answer that, but to answer the research, another weakness one, and this one I do use and is real, is that I feel like I am not a quick thinker. I am a slow, methodical thinker who does a lot, and I will often think of my best answer right after we move on from it. So to the earlier question,
so you hate this basically. Like, this is your worst.
This
is your worst nightmare. We have recorded proof of what you said and you wanting to change it.
Exactly. So mascot. Oh gosh. I feel like it would be a capybara. I don't know if y'all know what capybaras are.
I'm gonna have to look it up. I'm looking it up
Me
right
too.
now.
Can you spell it?
CAPY.
Oh, a rodent?
Yeah.
Oh my
God, they're adorable.
They're so cute.
It's the largest rodent in the world.
It is.
But 1, they're like a rodent. 2, they are cute. And 3, they're like internet famous for being just incredibly chill and like self-confident with everyone. Like there's all these pictures of capybaras just hanging out with like any animal. The capybara will just have like birds and monkeys and things crawling all over it, and the capybaras are sitting there like stone faced, like, yeah, this is cool. And then even like capybaras like sitting with like a bunch of crocodiles and just like chilling, and just like capybaras are just like get along with everyone, super chill, self-confident, just like do their own thing, and are cute. So look up some
That's a
capybara
great
memes,
answer. I think that's the best answer we've gotten for that question to date by far.
Yeah.
No, that's a great way to wrap it up. I'm looking at the capybara.
I know,
I've
right?
got it's got like monkeys all over what I'm looking at. It kind of looks like a bear too, so it's like
Hmm.
taking from the
Yeah.
original, but like chilling it out a little bit. Like
I,
it's probably not gonna attack you.
yeah, I think that's why I went to it, because it's kind of bear like. It's brown
I
and
love that.
got out. Yeah.
We'll put in a petition, Berkeley Haas, to change their mascot. But no, Jeff, you've really provided so much valuable information and you distilled a lot of the so what for your weakness. I feel like you
Mhm.
distilled so much so what of what you learned from your experience, and so many good pointers and tips for people who are listening that we'll recap and put in the show notes too. But yeah, just
Yeah.
incredibly appreciative, because I know this isn't your favorite things to do, but you do have like such a depth of like wisdom and knowledge on it.
No, I definitely like deep talks and getting into my philosopher mode. You know how much I like philosophy and theory. And to that point, I did want to just end on, so we didn't have a chance to work it in, but I think one of the one of the best, if not the best, advice I got in business school was advice that like didn't sit with me at first, but it was again from that career coach who Natalie Brain, who I think is the world of, but it's do what you want to do, not what you think you should do.
Mhm.
And for me, for somebody who spent most of their life doing what they think they should do, that was very eye-opening for a few reasons. But I think primarily, I think when people think about doing what they want to do, at least for me, I'm like, that's indulgent and a bad path and will lead you down roads to just, I don't know, hedonism and gluttony, or just being a bad person if you do what you want to do. Like, you should do what you should do because that's the righteous path. But inherent in that is the assumption that you are a morally bad person and that the things you want are bad. And I think people can realize like what I want is like actually all great things. I'm a good person and I want good things and they're wonderful and I should feel no shame in pursuing what I want. And subsequently, when you pursue what you want, there's this energistic building of passion and interest and motivation, and you don't get stuck in a soulless job doing things that you are really bored or uninterested in. You'll follow these really beautiful, magical careers of
Mhm.
just like mutual co-creation with people. And yeah, if you follow what you want to do, it energizes you in a much more powerful way. And odds are good that the things you want are also good for the world and good for society.
Well, that's a mic drop moment.
Right? That's some
Oh,
really good
such
advice.
such good advice. And just, yeah, especially speaking to this MBA audience, where we have the people who get here are usually people who have done everything they're supposed to do up until this point. And Jeff, you're such a great example of someone who, yeah, recognized what you wanted to do, provided good, and was certainly not leading you down the path of hedonism and gluttony. You're crushing it and crushing your life in San Francisco. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this and for sharing all of your like deep insights. And it's fun to hear it, having watched you go through it and the lessons you've taken away now. It's pretty amazing. So thank you. And that's it for this week's episode of How Did You Get In? We hope you enjoyed the episode. We think Jeff was amazing. Please go to our Instagram, follow us, send us any questions or recommendations for future episodes. We would love to hear what you would find most interesting to learn more about. And if you like the show, please leave a rating and review. Thank you so much. Until next time.